Right now, outside your window, there is water falling from the sky, and you have seen this so many times that it has become ordinary to you. Just weather, just rain. But consider this. The water falling outside your window right now was not made here. It was not born on this earth. The water in that rain was forged in the freezing dark of outer space, billions of years before our sun had even lit itself, before this planet existed at all. It arrived here on the backs of ancient comets, riding through the void of the early solar system, slow, silent, and patient. That rain outside your window is one of the oldest travelers in the known universe. And tonight, you are inside, warm and still, while something 4.5 billion years old falls gently outside. I have always found that thought deeply comforting. The idea that the rain does not need anything from you. It does not ask. It does not wait. It simply arrives, as it always has. And it is good to be here with you tonight, to share this quiet, rainy space. Two people listening to something ancient, from somewhere warm and safe. So let your shoulders drop now. Let the weight of the day begin to loosen. We are not going anywhere tonight. We are simply observers, watching something remarkable. From the warmth of wherever you are, let us begin at the very beginning. Not the beginning of life, not the beginning of the earth, the beginning of water itself. Water is made of two of the most common elements in the universe: hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen was born in the first moments after the Big Bang, nearly 14 billion years ago. It is the oldest element, the simplest thing that exists. Oxygen came later, forged in the burning cores of giant stars. Stars that had already lived and died, long before our sun was ever born. And somewhere out in the cold darkness between the stars, these two elements found each other, bonded, and became water. The universe is full of water. There are vast clouds of water vapor drifting through the galaxy, silent and invisible, larger than entire solar systems. Water exists on the moons of other planets, locked deep inside asteroids, frozen onto the surfaces of comets. Water is not a rare thing in the cosmos. It is one of the most common molecules in existence. And that means the rain falling outside your window is part of something enormous. Something that stretches to the very edge of the observable universe. When our solar system was young, it was a violent, chaotic place. Young planets were bombarded constantly, asteroids colliding, comets sweeping through. The early Earth was struck again and again, for hundreds of millions of years. And the comets that struck this young planet carried something precious inside them: ice, frozen water, locked inside rock and dust from the far reaches of the solar system. Every impact delivered more water, slowly, patiently, over millions of years. But for a long time, The water could not settle. The early Earth was a world of fire. Volcanoes erupting constantly. The surface molten and churning. The temperature of the young planet's surface was hot enough to vaporize anything the moment it landed. All of that water, all of it delivered by those ancient comets, rose immediately into the sky and hung there as steam. The early Earth was wrapped in a thick, global blanket of hot, dense water vapor, a worldwide cloud, dark and heavy and still. Then, the Earth began to cool, slowly, over millions of years. The surface temperature dropped, and dropped, and dropped, and then, somewhere over the ancient, dark surface of this cooling world, the first droplet of water condensed, and fell, and then another, and another. What followed was a rainstorm, but not a rainstorm like any you have ever seen. This storm did not stop for thousands of years. It simply rained. Hot, dense rain, pouring down over a bare, dark, silent planet, filling every basin, every low place, every crack in the cooling rock, until, slowly, those basins became pools. Those pools became lakes. Those lakes became seas. And the seas became the first oceans. The sound of rain that night outside your window is the same sound that filled the silence of an empty world. The first sound the earth ever made. The sound of water arriving home. As the water fell, it did something else. It pulled gases from the sky. Rain does this even now. As a droplet falls through the air, it absorbs gases around it. It captures tiny particles of dust. It cleans the air it moves through. In the early Earth, billions of years of rain slowly scrubbed the thick, toxic atmosphere above, drawing gases down, dissolving them into the ocean, changing the very chemistry of the world. The air you are breathing right now was shaped, in part, by rain. And then something extraordinary settled into place. A cycle. The sun warmed the oceans. The ocean water evaporated, rose into the air, cooled, formed clouds, and fell again as rain. This cycle, this slow, patient, endless loop, has been running continuously for over 3.5 billion years, without stopping, without interruption, without rest. The rain falling outside your window tonight is part of a cycle so old that when it began, there was not yet any life on earth to hear it. This is the part one finds most extraordinary, intimate. A personal aside whispered slowly. The water in tonight's rain has already been rain before, many times, because the water cycle does not create new water, and it does not destroy water. It simply moves it. Evaporate, raise, condense, fall, again and again and again. Every single drop of water on this planet has been rain before, has been ocean before, has been ice before, has been cloud before, and it will be all of those things again, long after any of us are here to notice. Here is a thought that may take a moment to settle. There is no more water on Earth today than there was 3 billion years ago. Not a drop more, not a drop less. The amount of water on this planet is essentially fixed. It cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. The glass of water on your bedside table contains water that has existed in some form since before life on Earth began. A raindrop falls at roughly 9 meters per second. That is fast enough to be impressive, but slow enough to be gentle. If a raindrop fell without air resistance, it would accelerate continuously from the clouds. By the time it reached the ground, it would hit with enough force to cause serious damage. But air resistance slows it. The friction of the atmosphere catches the falling drop and limits its speed. The atmosphere protects us, even from the rain. The soft sound you hear on a rainy night is the sound of something that could have been violent, made gentle by the air around you. Let us follow one drop of water. Imagine it. A single, small drop. Where does it begin? Perhaps it begins as part of a quiet, prehistoric sea. 3 billion years ago. A warm, shallow ocean. Under a sky with no clouds yet of the kind we know. No birds. No wind in any leaves. Just the slow pull of a tide. Under a sun that looked almost the same as it does today. The sun warms the surface of the water, and our drop begins to lift. It evaporates, rising silently, invisible now. A molecule of water vapor drifting upward into an empty sky. When water evaporates, it does not disappear. It simply becomes invisible. A molecule of water vapor is the same molecule as the water in a droplet. It has not changed. It has only loosened its grip on the molecules beside it and floated free. It drifts upward on warm air currents, higher and higher, until the air around it cools, and then it reaches out for something to hold on to. A raindrop cannot form from vapor alone. It needs something to gather around. A tiny particle of dust, or salt from a distant ocean, or a fragment of pollen. Something almost too small to imagine. Water vapor molecules gather around this tiny particle. One, then another, then millions, and a droplet forms. Inside every single raindrop, at the very center, there is a particle of dust. Every drop of rain that has ever touched your face was built around something that traveled the world on the wind. The clouds above your roof tonight are not made of water. They are made of ice. At the altitude where rain clouds form, temperatures are well below freezing. The water droplets that gather there freeze into tiny crystals. What you see as a soft, grey cloud is billions of tiny ice crystals suspended in the cold air, drifting slowly joining together. When the crystals grow heavy enough, they begin to fall, and as they fall through warmer air below, they melt and become rain. The soft rain on your roof tonight began its final journey as a falling crystal of ice. Back to our drop of water, we left it drifting upward from an ancient sea. Let us skip ahead, hundreds of millions of years forward in time. Our drop has been rain many times now, has been ocean, has been river, has been locked inside rock. But now, it is falling through the air of a Jurassic forest. Imagine the sound, not so different from tonight. The heavy, rhythmic drumming of rain on giant leaves. Broad, dark, waxy ferns as large as small trees. Drops landing on their surfaces, beading up, and running slowly to the edge, and falling again to the forest floor below. And somewhere nearby, in the dark and the warm wet air, a large animal breathes slowly, its sides rising and falling, asleep, while the rain falls around it. The rain tonight has fallen on sleeping things for hundreds of millions of years. Our drop moves forward in time again. Now we find it frozen. During the great ice ages, vast sheets of ice covered much of the earth. In places, the ice was a mile thick. And within that ice, water that had once been rain, once been ocean, once been the breath of a sleeping dinosaur, was locked away, silent, still. In the blue, frozen dark, glacier moves slowly, grinding over rock, carving valleys, pushing stones for thousands of years. The water in tonight's rain may have spent 100,000 years inside a glacier, still, patient, waiting. The valleys of Scotland, the lakes of Scandinavia, the great open plains of North America, all of these were shaped by water frozen into ice. The weight of a glacier does not simply rest on the land. It moves slowly, carrying everything beneath it, grinding stone into dust, reshaping mountains, scooping out basins that would later fill with water and become lakes. Every landscape you have ever found beautiful was made, in some part, by water. When the ice ages ended, the glacier began to melt. Not quickly, not all at once, but slowly, over thousands of years. The water locked in the ice began to release, a thin trickle running from the base of a glacier, joining other trickles, becoming a stream, becoming a river, moving through a landscape that had just been reshaped by the very ice now melting, and eventually finding its way back to the sea, ready to evaporate, ready to rise, ready to fall again. Not all rain falls and runs off immediately. Some of it sinks. It soaks into the ground, filtering down through layers of soil, through sand, through gravel, through the pores and cracks of deep rock, and it collects there, in vast underground reservoirs, called aquifers. Some of the water you have drunk in your life came from underground reserves that were filled the last time it rained in that region, which might have been a century ago or 1,000 years ago. Ancient water, patient and still, filtered through rock, waiting. The Grand Canyon is carved entirely by water. The Colorado River, over 5 or 6 million years, has cut through layers of rock, a mile deep. A mile. Water did that. Patient, persistent, gentle water. Given enough time. The river did not force its way through. It simply flowed. Year after year. Century after century. Following the pull of gravity. Wearing the rock away. A little at a time. Patience. That is what water teaches. It does not fight. It simply continues. Now let us bring all of this home to you. The human body is roughly 60% water. Your blood is mostly water. The fluid surrounding your brain, the fluid in your joints, the moisture in your lungs with every breath, all of it is water. The ancient water, the same water, the water that fell on the fern jungle, that was locked in the glacier, that carved the canyon, that rose from a prehistoric sea, is inside you, right now, keeping you alive. Every tear you have ever cried was once somewhere else, part of a cloud, part of a river, part of the ocean floor. The water that forms our tears is the same water that has been cycling through this world for 3.5 billion years. Nothing is lost. Everything changes form and returns. Life as we know it is not possible without water. Not just because living things need to drink it, but because water is the medium in which the chemistry of life takes place. Inside every cell of your body, chemical reactions are happening right now. Millions of them, every second. And all of them are happening in water. You are not a body that contains water. You are water that has temporarily taken the shape of a body. The sound of rain falling is the oldest sound that has ever occurred on this planet. Before wind moved through trees, there were no trees. Before waves broke on a shore, there were no shores as we know them. But rain fell on a bare, cooling rock of a world, long before any other sound existed here. The sound outside your window tonight is the oldest lullaby on earth. I have always loved how rain sounds different at night. There is a reason for this. During the day, the world is full of competing sound, traffic, movement, people, the background hum of activity. At night, all of that falls away, and the rain, which has been falling just as steadily, is suddenly all there is. The silence around the rain makes the rain louder, softer, more present. It fills the dark. There is a word for the feeling of being inside while it rains outside. The Danes call it hygge, a sense of cozy safety, of being sheltered and warm, while the world outside does what it will. The rain marks a boundary. Here, inside, you are safe. Out there, it rains, and that contrast, that gentle reminder of your warmth, is one of the oldest feelings a human can have. It reaches back to the very first shelters, to firelight and cave entrances, to the moment a human first listened to rain and felt glad to be inside. The smell of rain on dry earth has a name: petrichor. It comes from oils produced by plants, which are absorbed into dry soil over time. When rain falls, it releases those oils back into the air as a fine mist. The scent also contains geosmin, a compound produced by bacteria in the soil, a sign of moisture, of life, of something growing. Human beings can detect petrichor at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. We are extraordinarily sensitive to it, which suggests that for a very long time, finding rain mattered enormously to our survival. The smell of rain is ancient, and something in you still recognizes it as something good. Every human being who has ever lived has heard rain. Every person throughout all of history, every child who ever fell asleep to the sound of rain on a roof, every traveler sheltering under a tree, every farmer who looked up at a dark sky and felt relief, they all heard exactly what you are hearing now. The same sound, the same ancient rhythm, the same feeling of shelter. In this moment, you are connected to all of them. Water has shaped human history as much as any war or idea. The great civilizations of the ancient world grew up along rivers. The Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yellow River. Wherever water flowed reliably, people gathered. Crops grew, cities formed, writing was invented, mathematics, architecture, and where the rain failed, civilizations collapsed. The great drought that ended the Bronze Age, the dry years that emptied ancient cities in the Americas, the famines that shifted empires. We have always been entirely dependent on rain, and so we return to where we began. That rain outside, it began in the freezing dark of interstellar space, traveled here on an ancient comet, fell on a molten world with no name, rose and fell and rose and fell, for billions of years, through fern jungles, through glacier, through the air of a world slowly coming to life. It has been part of a dinosaur, part of the ocean floor, part of a glacier a mile thick, part of a river that carved a canyon. And tonight, it fell on the roof above you, and it is good to be here with you, in this quiet, listening to something that has traveled further and been more things than we will ever fully understand. Let your breathing slow now. Let the weight of everything you carry settle gently, like rain settling into the ground. We will continue from here. When you are ready, you are still here, and the rain is still falling. That is all we need to know. Let us continue. We speak of the water cycle as if it has a start, as if water begins somewhere and ends somewhere, but it does not. The water cycle is a loop with no seam, no starting point, no finish line. You could enter it anywhere and follow it forever. The ocean, the cloud, the rain, the river, the ocean again. It is one of the few true circles in nature. Perfect, unbroken, endless. Everything begins with the sun. The water cycle is, at its heart, a solar engine. The sun's energy strikes the surface of the ocean. It warms the water, and that warmth is enough to break the bonds between water molecules and send them drifting upward into the air. The sun lifts billions of tons of water into the sky every single day. Without the sun, there would be no evaporation, no clouds, no rain. The rain outside your window is powered by the same star that warms your face on a summer morning. The ocean evaporates roughly 1/2 meter of water from its surface every year across the entire global ocean. That is an almost incomprehensible volume of water rising silently into the atmosphere. We sometimes say the ocean breathes, and in a sense, it does, exhaling water vapor into the sky with every warm day, inhaling it back as rain, slowly, steadily, like something sleeping. A small cumulus cloud, the kind that drifts across a summer sky, contains roughly 500 tons of water. 500 tons. Suspended in the air above you, a large storm cloud, a cumulonimbus reaching up into the high atmosphere, can contain millions of tons of water, and yet it floats, because the water inside it is so finely divided into tiny droplets that it is carried by the upward movement of warm air beneath. The sky is holding an ocean above your head, gently, without effort. Most rain, even in warm countries, begins as snow, high in the upper reaches of a storm cloud, where temperatures fall far below freezing. The water crystals that gather there form snowflakes. They begin to fall, slowly at first, drifting downward through the cold upper air, and then they reach the warmer air below, and they melt, and they become rain. The raindrop that falls on your window pane tonight was a snowflake. Just minutes ago, we draw raindrops as teardrops, pointed at the top, round at the bottom, but a real raindrop looks nothing like that. Small raindrops are almost perfectly spherical, like tiny glass marbles. Larger raindrops, as they fall and meet the resistance of the air, flatten at the bottom. They become more like a small hamburger bun, domed on top, flat beneath, and if they grow too large, the air pressure beneath them becomes too great, and they split into two smaller drops, each one beginning the fall again. Even in the act of falling, rain is always finding its balance. There is a kind of rain that falls from clouds, but evaporates before it arrives. It is called virga. You can sometimes see it on clear days in dry climates. Long, dark streaks hanging beneath a cloud, like curtains of rain, that simply dissolve into the warm, dry air below. Rain that tried to fall and was absorbed back into the sky. There is something quietly beautiful about that. The attempt, the dissolving, the returning. As rain falls through dry air, it drags the air with it. The falling water cools the air around it, and cooler air is denser, heavier, so the air sinks, rushing downward alongside the rain. This is what creates the cool gust of wind that often arrives just before a rainstorm reaches you. The rain sends its breath ahead of itself, an announcement, a gentle warning. I always find that moment, that first cool gust before the rain, one of the most calming things in the world. The Amazon rainforest, the largest tropical forest on Earth, generates a significant portion of its own rainfall. The trees release water vapor through their leaves. This is called transpiration. And in a forest as vast as the Amazon, the sheer volume of water released by the trees creates enormous clouds above the canopy. Those clouds produce rain, which feeds the trees, which produce more vapor, which creates more rain. The forest breathes, and in breathing, it makes its own weather, a living system, sustaining itself, quietly. In the dark of a wet jungle night, a large tree in full leaf releases between 200 and 400 liters of water into the air every day through tiny pores in its leaves, called stomata. The tree draws water up from the soil, through its roots, up through its trunk, out along every branch, into every leaf, and releases it into the air as vapor. A forest of trees is a quiet pump, drawing water from the ground and returning it to the sky. Wherever human beings have lived, they have prayed for rain. The ancient Egyptians prayed to Tefnut, goddess of moisture and rain. The ancient Greeks called upon Zeus, who held the thundercloud in his hands. The Aztecs built temples to Tlaloc, whose tears were rain. The Norse had Thor, whose hammer struck the sky and brought the storm. In every corner of the ancient world, people looked up at a dark cloud and saw something alive, something that had to be respected, appeased, welcomed. They understood, in their way, what we understand in ours, that without rain, nothing lives. The oldest known ritual sites in the world show evidence of weather-related ceremony. Long before any organized religion, long before any written prayer, people gathered and asked the sky for water, tens of thousands of years ago, in a world with no cities, no writing, no agriculture, a human being stood under an open sky and lifted their hands toward the clouds. The hope that the rain would come is perhaps the oldest hope our species has ever held. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest written legal codes in history, from ancient Babylon, nearly 4,000 years ago, contains laws about irrigation, about who owns the water in a canal, about what happens when a farmer floods his neighbor's field, about the rights of those who need water for their crops. One of the first things human beings felt they needed to regulate was water, because water was life, and life was worth protecting. Ancient Egypt did not depend on rain. It depended on the flood. Every year, without fail, the Nile River flooded its banks. The flood water spread across the flat land on either side of the river, and when it retreated, it left behind a thick layer of rich, dark silt, the most fertile soil in the ancient world. The Egyptians called it the Black Land, in contrast to the red land of the desert beyond. The flood was not a disaster. It was a gift, a renewal, a promise kept by the river. Every single year, the ancient Egyptians built one of the great civilizations of history on the back of water they trusted to arrive. In South and Southeast Asia, roughly half the world's population has organized its entire way of life around one word: monsoon. The monsoon is not simply a rainy season. It is a relationship, an annual rhythm between the land and the sea and the sky. Warm air rises over the heated land in summer, drawing moist air in from the Indian Ocean, and with it comes rain. Months of rain. The kind of rain that fills rivers and lakes and aquifers. The arrival of the monsoon is still celebrated, welcomed with music and color and relief. The sound of that first heavy rain on a hot, dry roof is one of the most joyful sounds a person can hear. The British have had a lot of time to study rain. A brief, quiet warmth in the voice here, almost a smile, and the English language reflects it. Drizzle, shower, downpour, deluge, mizzle, spitting, bucketing, lashing, pelting, each one a slightly different quality of wet, a different weight, a different mood, a language that has that many words for one thing, understands that thing deeply. Before industry, before pollution, rainwater was considered the cleanest water available. It had been distilled by the sun, purified by the act of evaporation, filtered through the atmosphere, and delivered directly from the sky. People collected it in barrels, in cisterns carved from stone, in clay pots left open to the night. The rain that fell on the roof was not a nuisance. It was a resource, gathered carefully, stored, valued. The city of Rome was built above a network of underground springs and streams. The ancient Romans understood the value of water deeply. They built 11 major aqueducts, carrying water from mountains and springs, hundreds of kilometers into the city. At the height of the Roman Empire, Rome had more running water per person than many modern cities. The Romans revered their water sources. The god of the Tiber River was worshipped. Sacred springs had temples built above them. They knew, as we know, that the city lives or dies by its water. Across many cultures, rain on a wedding day is considered a blessing. In Hindu tradition, a wet knot is harder to untie. Rain on a wedding day means a marriage that will not easily be undone. In some European traditions, rain represents fertility and new beginnings. In others, it means the couple will have enough to cry their tears now, and will not need to cry them later. The rain is woven into our most important moments, our celebrations, our rituals, our endings and our beginnings. Every literary tradition in the world has poems about rain. The Japanese haiku masters wrote about rain on a summer pond. The Persian poets used rain as a metaphor for grief. The Romantic poets of England found in rain a mirror for longing. Rain is one of the oldest subjects for the human imagination, because rain does something to the inside of a person. It slows you. It quiets the world around you. It turns you inward. And in that inward place, things that needed to be felt can finally be felt. We speak of rain as if it is one thing, but rain comes in many forms. Frontal rain, which forms when a warm air mass meets a cold one. The warm air is forced upward. It cools, and rain falls along the boundary between the two systems. Convective rain, the sudden summer downpour, when the sun heats the ground intensely, and the warm air rises so quickly that towering storm clouds form within hours. An orographic rain, the rain that mountains make. Each kind has its own character, its own sound, its own feel. When moist air from the ocean meets a mountain range, it has nowhere to go but up. It rises along the slope of the mountain, cools as it climbs, and deposits its moisture as rain or snow on the windward side. This is why one side of a mountain range can be lush and green, dripping with forest and fern, while the other side is desert. The mountain takes the rain for itself and keeps the other side dry. Mawzinram, in northeastern India, is considered the wettest inhabited place on Earth. It receives an average of nearly 12 meters of rain per year. 12 meters. The ceiling above you is perhaps 2.5 meters high. The rain in Mawzinram would stack nearly 5 such rooms. Every year, the monsoon arrives there with such force that villagers have traditionally lined their roofs with grass to muffle the sound of the rain, so they can sleep. The sound of rain so heavy it must be softened before it will let you rest. The Atacama Desert in Chile is often called the driest place on Earth. In some parts of the Atacama, it does not measurably rain for decades, and yet even there, even in those ancient, silent stone landscapes, water finds a way. Coastal fog drifts in from the Pacific Ocean and clings to rocks and cacti and specially adapted plants, delivering just enough moisture for life to hold on. Water does not give up, not even in the driest place in the world. Rain is not unique to Earth. On Venus, it rains sulfuric acid. Droplets of acid form high in the thick atmosphere and fall toward the surface. But Venus is so hot that the rain evaporates before it arrives. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, it rains methane, a cold, liquid hydrocarbon, falling on a world of ice and orange haze. And on distant gas giants, astronomers believe it may rain diamonds, carbon compressed by enormous pressure, forming solid crystals and falling through the darkness. Rain is something the universe makes, wherever the conditions allow. When lightning strikes, it heats the air around it to temperatures 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. In an instant, the air expands so suddenly, so violently, that it creates a shock wave. That shock wave is thunder. The rumble you hear when thunder rolls is that shock wave reaching your ears, the sound traveling from the nearest part of the lightning channel, and then from parts further away, arriving in sequence. A roll of thunder is a sound stretched across distance. Sound travels at roughly 1 kilometer every 3 seconds. So if you see a flash of lightning, and then count the seconds until you hear the thunder, dividing by 3 gives you the distance in kilometers. 3 seconds, 1 kilometer away. 15 seconds, 5 kilometers. Counting seconds during a storm is a way of measuring the world around you, of feeling your place in the landscape, of knowing that the storm is there and you are here. During the day, the sun heats the ground. The ground heats the air immediately above it, and that warm air rises. This means the lower atmosphere during the day is turbulent, full of rising and falling air currents. At night, the ground cools, the air above it settles, the atmosphere becomes calmer, more still. Rain falling through a still atmosphere falls more evenly, more quietly, without the disruption of rising warm air below. Night rain is different, not just in how it sounds, in how it falls. Long before there were recordings of rain, people sought out the sound, sleeping near rivers, leaving windows open during storms, building homes with wide roof overhangs, so that the rain would drip from the edges, and the sound would carry inside. The sound of rain is a natural sleep aid. It masks other sounds. It provides what psychologists call non-threatening stimulation. Something consistent, something predictable, something the sleeping brain can easily ignore, while the unpredictable silence allows it to rest more deeply. Rain tells the brain, nothing is changing. Everything is the same. You can let go of all the sounds in nature. Rain has been recorded more than any other, more than birdsong, more than ocean waves, more than wind, because people seek it out. They put microphones outside their windows. They record it on phones pressed against wet glass. They drive to forests in autumn to capture the sound of rain on leaves. There is something in us that wants to hold on to it, to be able to hear it, even when the sky is clear and dry. Because rain does something to us, something ancient, something we cannot quite name, something that feels like being home. 60 moments in the long life of water, and we are barely halfway through the story. Let that be enough for now. There is more. There is always more. But tonight is for resting. The rain is still falling. You are still here. That is everything. Close your eyes if they are not already closed. Let the rain take the silence. We will continue when you are ready. The rain is still there. It has not changed. It has not stopped. It simply continues, as it always does. And so do we. There is something that happens inside a person when it rains. Something that is difficult to name precisely, but that almost everyone has felt. A settling, a turning inward. Scientists who study the relationship between weather and mood have found something quietly fascinating. Rain does not simply make people sad. It makes people reflective. There is a difference. Sadness is a weight. Reflection is a door. Rain opens the door. And for many people, what waits behind that door is not grief. It is clarity. A kind of quiet honesty with oneself that is hard to access when the world is loud and bright. Psychologists have studied what they call the rain effect on creativity. Writers who work near windows during rain. Painters who find their color choices shift on overcast days. Musicians who say their best work comes in the small hours of a rainy season. The theory is this: rain reduces external stimulation. It muffles the world, lowers the volume of everything outside. And in that reduced noise, the interior becomes louder. The thoughts that could not find space in the brightness and busyness of a clear day suddenly have room. Rain gives the mind room. There is also this: rain gives us permission. Permission to stay inside. Permission to cancel plans without guilt. Permission to move slowly. Permission to simply be. In a world that asks us constantly to be productive, to be going somewhere, to be doing something, rain arrives and says, "Not today." And we are relieved. The Japanese have a word for the sound of rain that has no direct translation: shizuku. It refers to the drop of water as it falls from the tip of a leaf. That specific, singular sound. The weight of the gathered water. The moment of release. The drop falling through still air. And arriving. A whole word for one drop of water falling from one leaf. The Japanese understand that each moment of rain is worth attending to. That nothing about it is ordinary. not even the smallest, most fleeting part. There is a practice in some meditation traditions of rain listening, simply sitting, without agenda, without trying to achieve anything, and attending to the sound of rain, not thinking about the rain, not analyzing it, simply hearing it. Practitioners describe the same thing again and again, that the rain, attended to closely enough, stops being a single sound and becomes many sounds. The drop on the glass, the heavier drop on the stone path, the trickle in the gutter, the soft drumming on the soil, the resonance inside a hollow downpipe, a whole orchestra, playing without rehearsal, and never exactly the same twice. The brain responds to rain in a measurable way. Studies using EEG have shown that listening to rain increases alpha wave activity in the brain. Alpha waves are associated with a relaxed but alert state, the state of calm wakefulness that exists just at the edge of sleep, the same state that experienced meditators describe as the goal of their practice. Rain takes us there, without effort, without technique, simply by falling. There is a particular kind of tiredness that rain brings, not the tiredness of exertion, not the ache of a long day, but the tiredness of permission. The body knows when it is safe to let go, and the sound of rain, the steady, undemanding, ancient sound of rain, is one of the clearest signals the body has ever received. Safe. Still. Nothing required. The body hears this and begins to slow. Music and rain have always been in conversation. The earliest musical instruments were often percussion, drums made from hollow logs, stretched skins, hollow gourds filled with seeds, and the rhythms those early musicians played were rhythms they heard in the world around them. The rhythm of rain on a dry riverbed, the irregular beat of heavy drops on broad leaves, the rolling thunder that moved across the hills. The very first music may have been an attempt to speak the language of rain. Composers have returned to rain again and again throughout history. Frédéric Chopin wrote a prelude that listeners immediately called the Raindrop Prelude. He never gave it that name, but the repeated note at its center, a single note returning again and again through changing harmonies, sounded so clearly like water falling on a roof that the name arrived on its own. He wrote it during a winter on the island of Majorca, in a cold stone monastery, ill and surrounded by rain. What came from that rainy confinement was one of the most beloved short pieces in all of classical music. Something about restriction and rain conspires to make beauty. Debussy spent years trying to capture water in sound, the shimmer of light on a surface, the movement of a stream over stone, the feeling of mist. He called his approach to composition impressionism, not depicting things exactly, but capturing the feeling of them, the sensation, the atmosphere. He understood that the most real thing about rain is not its physics. It is what it does to the person standing underneath it. In jazz, in blues, in gospel, rain arrives as both sorrow and relief. The blues singers of the American South used rain as a mirror for longing. Rain on a tin roof. Rain on the levee. Rain that wouldn't stop. Rain that everyone needed and no one could control. And yet even in the saddest rain songs, there is comfort. Because rain is there. Present. Reliable. Even grief, the song seems to say, is something to be shared with the rain. And sharing makes it lighter. There are songs in every musical tradition that use rain as a lullaby. Mothers across the world have sung to their children about rain, about shelter, about the warmth inside while the world outside is wet and dark. The rain outside becomes a wall, and inside the wall there is the child, and the voice, and the warmth. Rain as protection. Rain as the border of a safe world. That feeling does not leave us when we grow. We simply forget to notice it. Tonight, perhaps, you are noticing it again. Let us return to the body for a moment. To the water inside you. Your blood is roughly 90% water. It carries oxygen to every cell. It carries away the waste each cell produces. It maintains the temperature of the body. It delivers hormones. It carries messages between organs. Your blood is a river, moving constantly, even now, even in the stillness of this moment. A river running through you. The fluid around your brain and spinal cord is almost entirely water. It cushions. It protects. It absorbs the small shocks and jolts of daily movement. The most complex object in the known universe, the human brain, is held safe by water, suspended in it, surrounded by it, as if the body understood, long before we did, how valuable that organ was, and wrapped it in the most reliable protective substance it knew: water. When you cry, the tears that form in your eyes are not simply water. They contain proteins, hormones, antibodies, enzymes. Emotional tears are chemically different from the tears your eyes produce to stay moist. They contain higher levels of stress hormones. Some researchers believe that crying is a way the body disposes of those hormones. A chemical release. A physical way of letting go. The relief you feel after crying. That exhausted, clean, empty feeling. May be partly chemical. The body, quite literally, pouring out what it no longer needs to carry. Even our grief moves like water. The skin is the largest organ in the body, and it is largely water too. When you feel the first cold drops of rain on your face, that sensation travels from your skin to your brain in milliseconds. And your brain, recognizing what it is, does something interesting. It releases a small amount of dopamine, a reward chemical. Not for everyone, not every time, but for many people who enjoy rain. The first drops on skin produce a genuine, measurable moment of pleasure. The brain rewarding the body for noticing something good, something familiar, something safe. We lose water constantly, through breath, through skin, through the ordinary functioning of a body simply being alive. An average person loses roughly 2.5 liters of water per day, without effort, without noticing, simply by existing. And so the body asks for water, again and again, every day. The sensation of thirst is one of the oldest feelings an animal can have. It reaches back to the very beginning of life on Earth. Every living thing that has ever existed has needed water, and has, in its own way, sought it. The first plant that ever grew from dry land grew because of rain. Before land plants existed, roughly 470 million years ago, life was confined to the water. The oceans were full, but the land was bare. Bare rock, bare stone, no soil yet, no green. And then, something small, a primitive relative of modern mosses, found a crack in the rock near the edge of the water, and held on. It survived because rain fell on it. Fresh water from the sky, delivered directly, without the need to be close to a river or a lake. Rain made the land livable. Rain moved life out of the ocean. Rain gave the world its green. Soil is made of rain. Not entirely, but rain is essential to its formation. The breakdown of rock into smaller and smaller particles takes millions of years. And rain is one of the primary agents of that breakdown. Rainwater, slightly acidic from dissolved carbon dioxide in the air, works its way into cracks in rock. It freezes and expands in winter. It dissolves minerals. It carries particles away. Grain by grain, drop by drop. Over geological time, rock becomes soil, and soil becomes the foundation of every forest, every meadow, every farm, every garden. The ground beneath all growing things was made, in part, by rain. Bees feel rain coming before it arrives. They are sensitive to the drop in barometric pressure that precedes a storm, and they return to the hive. Even on a clear day, even with no visible cloud, they feel the change in the air, and they go home. Birds fly lower before rain, because the lower air pressure that comes with approaching storms makes it uncomfortable to fly high. Frogs become louder before rain, their calls filling the air as the humidity rises, as the conditions become more favorable for them to be out in the open. The whole natural world reads rain, adjusts to it, prepares for it. Every living thing on this earth has a relationship with water, built over millions of years of needing it. After rain, in a forest, the light is different. Every surface has been washed. The dust has been laid. The particles that scatter light have been cleared from the air, and the world looks cleaned, clarified, as if someone has adjusted the contrast, made the colors deeper, made the edges sharper. The green of leaves after rain is a particular shade of green. There is no name for it, but you know it when you see it. The world, rinsed and still. The oldest trees on earth have been drinking rain for thousands of years. There is a bristlecone pine in the White Mountains of California, still living, still growing. That is nearly 5,000 years old. It was already old when the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. It was a mature tree when Rome was founded. It has watched 2,000 years of recorded history, and in all of that time, through every season, every drought, every storm, it has been drinking rain, the same rain, cycling through the same sky. We are mostly made of water, and so is the Earth. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water, and yet only 3% of all the water on Earth is fresh. Of that 3%, 2/3 is locked in ice, in glacier and polar ice caps. What remains, that small, remaining fraction of all the water on Earth, is what all living things on land share. It is more than enough. It has always been more than enough. Because it cycles. Because it returns. Because nothing is lost. There are glaciers that have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. And they are melting now. Not because the water cycle is broken, but because the temperature of the atmosphere is changing. And temperature governs where water exists in the world. In what form? In what place? The water is not disappearing. It never disappears. It is moving, redistributing, following the heat. The question for the future of the human world is not whether there will be water. There will always be water. The question is where it will be, and whether we will have the wisdom to share it. The civilizations that have lasted longest in human history have been the ones with the most thoughtful relationship with water. Ancient Persia built underground aqueducts called comets, tunnels cut through rock and soil, carrying mountain water to desert towns. Some of them are still in use. 2,500 years later, the ancient Nabatean people built cities in the desert by collecting every drop of rain that fell. They carved channels into the rock that directed runoff into underground cisterns. They wasted nothing, and they flourished. In the driest places on Earth, where water is most scarce, human ingenuity has found ways to gather it, to honor it, to use what arrives and keep it close. Scientists are studying the possibility of creating rain, cloud seeding, the process of introducing particles into clouds, silver iodide, or other substances that give water vapor something to gather around, and so encourage rain to fall. It is not a new idea. The first attempts were made in the 1940s, and in some parts of the world, in the mountains above cities, in dry farming regions. It is used quietly, carefully. We are learning, slowly, to ask the sky, in a language that works. But all of that is for the daylight hours, for plans and problems and futures. Tonight, right now, there is only the rain, and there is only you, breathing. Listen to how little is being asked of you. Nothing. Not one thing. The only task of this moment is to be here. And you are already doing that. Think of the water in your blood right now, moving without your permission, without your effort. Your heart, steady as ever, moving it quietly through you. You do not have to think about your blood. Your body knows what to do. You do not have to think about your breathing. It will continue without you. Everything that needs to happen while you sleep is already being handled. Your body knows how to be in the dark. It has been doing it for as long as you have been alive, and long before that. The blueprint for sleeping is ancient. It is in you. The rain outside your window was once a glacier, moving so slowly that to watch it would require 1,000 years of patience. It carved valleys and did not hurry. There is a kind of permission in that thought. To not hurry. To move at the pace of a glacier. To trust that what needs to be shaped will be shaped. Not by force, but by time, and water, and patience. Rain has been falling on sleeping things for hundreds of millions of years. On the dinosaur in the fern forest. On the early mammal curled in the roots of a tree. On every person who has ever lived. Every human being who has ever fallen asleep to rain has been held in exactly the feeling you are in now. The warmth, the shelter, the sound of water on the world outside, the slow release of the day. You are part of a long, long line of people who found rest in rain. And tonight you join them. The water in tonight's rain has been part of clouds that drifted over every continent. It has been in rivers that no longer exist, in seas that have changed their shape, in ice that covered mountains now bare. It has been breathed out by animals long extinct, absorbed by roots of trees that became coal, held in stone for 1,000,000 years. And now it is here, above your roof, on your window, in the air around you, and some of it, this very night, is inside you. You are the rain, gathered for a time, into this particular shape, this particular life. And like the rain, you do not disappear. You change form. You are part of something that has no beginning and no end. Something ancient. Something patient. Something that has survived every age the earth has passed through and is still here. Still falling. Still rising. Still returning. Let your breath slow now. Let each exhale be a little longer than the one before. Let the weight of your body settle into whatever is beneath you. You are held. You have always been held. The earth beneath the building, beneath the room, beneath you. Solid. Still. 4.5 billion years old. And it has not once dropped anything placed upon it. You can trust it. The rain is falling. Not fast. Not urgently. Just the steady, unhurried falling of something that has been doing this longer than memory. There is nowhere it needs to be. It will get there. It always does. If there are thoughts moving through your mind right now, let them be like clouds. Not pushed away. Not held on to. Just moving. As clouds move. Slowly drifting across. And out of view. You do not have to resolve anything tonight. You do not have to understand anything. You only have to be here, and let the rain be there. The oldest water on earth is right outside, and it is falling softly on a world it has known far longer than we have. And somewhere in it, in the sound of it, in the rhythm of it, is a kind of reassurance that things continue, that water falls and rises and falls again, that the world, despite everything, is still turning, still breathing, still making rain. I have always found that thought the most comforting of all. Not that everything is fixed, not that everything is understood, but that the water still falls, and that you are here to hear it, and that tonight, of all nights, you chose to stop and listen. That is enough. That is more than enough. It is good to have been here with you, in this quiet, while the ancient water fell on the world outside. Sleep now. The rain will keep watch. It has been doing it for a very long time, and it will still be here. When you wake,